Good afternoon. Pleasure to be in Bangkok. It is my role first to introduce our two speakers. For the ones of you that do not know, Venezuela gave birth to the greatest South American ever, Simón Bolívar. 2 centuries ago, this man got on his horse, traversed the Andes, and gave independence to 5 countries, Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, and Bolivia. But lo and behold, this 21st century, the magical Venezuela that has everything to prosper and have great levels of development, has been living under a government that mismanaged its economy, clamped down on free press, persecuted the opposition, and threw in jail lots of young people for tweeting against the government. The most massive form of corruption that can take place is when democracy and rights get taken away from people. And I can tell you that there's a date coming soon, December 6th, when Venezuela has a chance through the ballot box to hold elections and change course. And in no small part, remember, mark my words, Venezuela will take a different path because many young people in Venezuela, like Bolívar when he got on his horse, they're now being beamed up to the sky and through YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter are spreading a message of regaining democracy, getting freedom back. And when you are invited to the 2045 One Young World Forum, they'll be talking about 2 remarkable Venezuelans that in December 6, 2015, gave it their all to have democracy back in the land of Simón Bolívar. Please give it up and welcome Carlos Vargas and Mario Di Giovanni from the magical land of Venezuela.
Esteemed councilors,
prominent young leaders of the world,
we want to ask a favor from you. Take your mobile out and wave them. Now, what we want you to do is to tweet, "I believe in the power of youth," to #EndCorruptionNow. I believe in the power of youth to #EndCorruptionNow.
Corruption upsets every element of society as it undermines political development, democracy, and more.
Venezuela drops 15 on the most corrupted countries in the world. And last year, over 40 Venezuelans were killed in peaceful protests. So we know that the fight against corruption is not easy. I personally was injured 3 years ago, protesting peacefully for free and fair elections. I received 35 stitches in my left eye from a rock thrown at me by some government sympathizers. That day, I understood that I had a responsibility to create change. So the first thing I want to say to you is, change starts within ourselves. The second thing I want to say to you is, after we change, we need to spread the word. So that's why I became a representative of the Venezuelan student movement. And I can tell you that the first thing we did when those inhuman acts started to happen was understanding why this was about fighting for our dignity. Then we took the streets, and we were able to mobilize more than 50,000 students and countless citizens from a massive campaign in social media, assemblies, and word of mouth. So the third thing I want to say to you is, people are willing to act when they understand the reason. It's as simple as that. We, as young leaders, can create meaningful actions if we understand the value of it, we are coherent with ourselves, and we get this message out to all our generation.
In 2010, I saw the need to defend the electoral rights of an increasing number of Venezuelans living abroad. I created VotoDondeSea, Vote From Wherever in Spanish, an NGO based in Miami, Florida, with the goal of informing, facilitating, and promoting voting rights of Venezuelans who had left the country. What began as a small movement in Miami soon became an international movement with young activists who shared the same idea. Being away should not mean that you cannot decide the future of your own nation. We confronted our biggest challenges in the 2012 and 2013 Venezuelan presidential elections. The Venezuelan government wanted to make it more difficult for us to vote, so it deliberately closed the Venezuelan consulate in Miami. This forced us to travel over 900 kilometers to New Orleans, Louisiana, where it placed the nearest polling station. As many Venezuelans could not afford the long journey, we embarked in a campaign to collect funds and organize transportation. We ended taking over 5,000 Venezuelans in the 2 elections, the 2012 and 2013 elections. This came to be known as the biggest human mobilization to participate in an election in history. So why was it so important to fight for our right to vote? Because if we don't vote, there is no accountability. Voting is the strongest tool you have to make sure that your governments act with integrity.
Today, thanks to technology and globalization, each of us holds in our hand a power to cause change, to cooperate as global citizens to eradicate corrupt practices from our world. Do you remember the tweet you sent? Okay, now what we want you to do is to find every person that tweeted through the hashtag and follow them, so that we can together form an international movement to promote governmental integrity.
To conclude, we want to leave you the first task as young promoters of government integrity. 2 weeks from now, Venezuela will have legislative elections. The past electoral processes in Venezuela have been plagued by corruption and fraudulent actions by the government, using state resources towards their own advantage and imprisoning those who oppose them, including student activists and top opposition leaders.
So on the 6th of December, we need all of you to become international observers of this electoral process. We need you to become the voice of those Venezuelans that have been silenced by the government. Please take close attention to this event and expose any abuse or human right violation that might happen.
Imagine for a second that somebody asks you, when everything was wrong, when everything was dark, what did you do? Did you just sit there with your arms crossed? Did you just look the other way while corruption was taking over your country? Leadership is most needed when the storm arrives. We must use all the tools at our disposal to make sure that our governments act with integrity.
We will never sit with our arms crossed.
We will always stand against corruption, and we hope you do it too.